All right, we are live again, and we're 1 minute early, kind of,
Or are we?
because Patrick messed up for the 7th day in a row.
It's my computer or it's the back end of YouTube. I can't figure it out. Every time I say go live at the time I want, it not only picks another time altogether, but it won't let me go back and change it. So I don't know what the issue is.
All right, well, let me start off by saying, guys, we have just started a new F-Stoppers Live YouTube account. The link is in the description. And we would greatly appreciate if you would subscribe to it, even if you hate our content, and unsubscribe in the very near future. I've been working on it all day, and I believe to do some of the things we need to do, go live and stuff, I think we have to hit 1,000 subscribers.
So that channel's not even eligible.
I don't think it's eligible. Maybe tonight and tomorrow with just the views on this, maybe we can get up to 1,000 subscribers and get that rolling. My current plan, which is certainly capable of changing at any moment, is that I think we might use this F-Stoppers Live YouTube page to just record everything live that we're doing all the time. But then for like this coronavirus stuff, maybe it'll just live there. I'm not exactly sure yet. We're not going to spring this on you, like we'll warn you days in advance before we make that switch. But for a lot of what we do, I mean, let's say we do the coronavirus video, and then in a section of this video, we talk about the new Canon R5 or the DJI Phantom or whatever. I think it could be interesting to have an editor chop that out, the most interesting clips that are related to photography, and then put that on the F-Stoppers YouTube. So that's my plan at the moment. But again, we could change our mind. And then something else I forgot. I actually wanted to get my personal YouTube page up and running today too. I don't really have a game plan on what I want to put up there, but I was going to ask you guys to just subscribe to that. And I just realized I forgot to get that going.
One channel at a time.
Yeah,
One at a time.
It's a little too much. Let's go ahead and get to this. And if anybody hears light clicking, let us know. We're trying to pin down where that clicking could be coming from.
Was it in yesterday's video?
I did not notice it in yesterday's video, but I didn't watch the majority of yesterday's video.
But it was in 2 days ago.
Yeah, and yesterday's video, just the sections that I looked at, it seemed to be the best looking video we've had so far. I changed the settings to 1080-30.
Okay.
I changed the camera to 1080-30. OBS to 1080-30, like everything 1080-30.
1080-30 looks better than 1080-60.
Yeah, like 1080-60 did not look like 60 frames per second.
That's weird.
So
I don't personally like 60 frames, but
I don't either.
We were told that that's what the algorithm prefers. But today's also Cinco de Mayo, so this is the margarita that was recommended on our channel. So I've been making this.
I should have had some, but maybe after the show. Anthony says it's his birthday. Lee, will you please call Patrick a vag twice? Patrick, you know damn well you're a vag. And Patrick, you're definitely a vag. All right, can we get to the show now? Coronavirus cases, 3.7
moving quickly.
million cases, 257,000 deaths. And I think I got the U.S. pulled up right here. 1.2 million and then 72,000. What were we at yesterday? Was it 60
something, 65, 67?
I don't know, but it wasn't. I didn't think it was in the 70s, so we must have had a big death day yesterday.
We keep talking about this day where, like, how many people died? 2,000, 3,000?
This chart is not telling the truth.
Somebody said you have to go, maybe you can type this in, go to the World Health Organization. I don't know how hard it'll be to find that chart.
Yeah, you're going to ask me to do this live?
Well, they said that chart shows the record-breaking days. I don't know, day is day. Like, what was it? Was it 2,000 or 3,000?
USA COVID death stats.
Thinking you type in World Health Organization, but...
Oh, really? So it's not, is it this?
That's the CDC. That's another organization. Don't you have all these organizations down by now?
No, I know, but...
World Health Organization.
World Health Organization.
I want to say, is Trump changing his daily speeches? Has that still been going on?
I haven't noticed that going on.
He's got the new press secretary, right?
Yeah, she seems pretty crafty to me, like in a good way.
Well, she's pretty smart. She graduated from Harvard,
incredibly
and
smart.
Another Ivy League school. So
Okay.
she's pretty sharp, but
I mean, just the way she speaks, and she's able to have these answers off the cuff. And Kellyanne Conway, Kellyanne Conway, like I feel like she's incredible at dodging these tough questions and stuff, and painting Trump in a good light. But this young girl, I feel like she's even better. It's like, oh my gosh, I need her representing me.
Well, did you see Trump called her husband a moon face today?
Yes.
And everyone's saying it's a
so
racial slur because
insane.
he's half Filipino. But then I'm thinking like moon face. When I think of moon face, I think of people who are on prednisone, and you get the moon
think
face.
like fat head.
Well, I think moon face is the actual medical term for people on prednisone.
All right, I cannot find these.
We'll have to look it up, but somebody was just saying the World Health Organization is showing that spike that happened. Was it Saturday, Sunday? It was in the last couple days.
Why is my worldometers no longer accurate? I don't understand. All right, so we've got a few different things to talk about here. Let me go to this big one.
Hey, TC Photo, he's here telling me he's glad I'm enjoying his margarita mix. Look, I got the
Nice.
the egg white in there too. I put 2 eggs in there because I made a batch, and the whole thing was like this frothy, silky smooth drink, which was interesting. But
all right, so for the last few days, we've been arguing about whether or not, we should just live our life to the fullest and probably catch it, because we're going to catch it eventually anyway. And
we've
you're
not
like,
really been on the same page here, but
no,
we're probably closer.
I'm sure.
I'm not like one of these people who's like, if anybody dies, you're to blame. But
Sure. Well, you were like, you have a 1 in 200 chance of dying or whatever with the statistics we know, and blah, 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 blah.
The broad statistics. But once you said you were 35, 36, how old are you?
I think I'm 36, maybe.
Then your chances are very, very slim.
Right.
Which makes sense. Is there a new study that...
I am interested, and I keep meaning to do this every single day, but I want to put some statistics together and figure out, based on my age and based on the fact that I don't have any underlying conditions, what actually is the statistical chance I will die based on a few different numbers that we have right now. I think that would be an interesting number, and I think it would, open people's eyes. But look at this article here. 99% of those who died from the virus had other illnesses in Italy. Now,
well, what does other illness mean? I mean, doesn't everybody...
No, I don't have another illness.
You have like receding hairline.
That's
an illness.
Fatal. That shows a high testosterone level. That shows like really, really manly.
If you say so.
But, I found that to be extremely interesting, and I can't remember the statistic offhand, but there was a statistic that came out of Europe, and it was something like 80%, I'm just making this up, so double check me everyone, but it was something like 80% of all deaths in Europe were from assisted living facilities.
How many?
I thought it was something like 80%.
Okay.
I thought it was just incredibly high.
What was the article you pulled up right when we ended our podcast last night? It was something about in New York. I thought maybe it was another country. It was something like 96% or 94% of everyone that died from COVID had a chronic illness, is what you said?
And I tried to find this article.
You just had it
right before we went
23 hours
live,
ago.
and I cannot find this freaking article. So,
well, my argument is kind of what I just said here. Who has chronic illnesses? I mean, after a certain age, like, you may not have a chronic illness. I technically do. I have Crohn's disease. But once you get to the age of like 40, 50, everyone's going to be diagnosed with some kind of chronic illness, right? Doesn't that mean everybody? I just feel like so many people have high blood pressure, or they have diabetes, or, they have...
Yeah, a lot of people do. Well, most young people do not.
Right.
So that's my point, is like you are, maybe you do have a chronic disease, so maybe you do need to be locked inside forever, but for the average person under 40 years old, it's incredibly rare for people to die. And I had this one statistic that said in all of New York State, New York State's like the epicenter of the world for this.
Yeah.
Only, I think, 3 people under the age of 17 have died, and all 3 of them had chronic illnesses. So, they died of those illnesses, or, it was like some complication of that. I also just learned that 2 of Katie's friends had it and recovered. They're in New York, and they said it was really bad. They felt really sick for a few days, and then they fully recovered, and they said it was like much faster than other people. It didn't take 2 weeks.
Oh, that's good.
And so now they are immune, and now they can go to jiu-jitsu class, and they don't have to worry.
When you say they're immune, I mean, have we gotten to the point where we know definitively that you are immune from coronavirus after you've had it?
That's what the study in South Korea has said. So, it seems incredibly easy to prove that. If you've got it, I would imagine if you've had it, those people are probably living a little bit more wildly than people who are afraid of it. So wouldn't you expect them to catch it again extremely quickly? Especially if you're in New York, you're riding the subway, you're going on flights.
Maybe it has to do with the strains, though. We got to get those people from South Korea into Europe or into one of the coasts of America to see if they get reinfected by the other strain.
That's kind of scary because at the moment international travel seems to be almost completely shut down. So maybe there could be different strains in different countries. Let's see. Somebody may have linked to this article.
Darren says she only has 2 friends.
Who?
Your wife.
Oh, 2 of her friends. Mm-hmm. All right. So this article says 75% of coronavirus deaths had at least one underlying chronic medical condition.
I wonder how they determine this, though. Like, if you went in, we've had all these friends and even family members who have gone in and they have the sleep issues and stuff.
Yep.
I mean, that's a chronic disease. But if you're diagnosed with something at any point in your life, are they pulling the records and coming up with a statistic?
Hopefully not. I think one of these...
have you ever had kidney stones? I've had kidney stones twice in my life.
No, I'm healthy.
I don't know if that's considered a chronic disease. I think it's just because I drink a lot of sweet tea in the summer and didn't stay hydrated enough. But maybe that's in my record, and if I were to die... I mean, you watched that Project Veritas video I sent you today, right?
Yeah.
Somebody on our channel...
Did you put a link or a
I
clip of
didn't.
that?
I forgot about it. But basically, somebody was like, you got to watch the Project Veritas. They have 10 videos in the last month. So I'm like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to be watching. But I watched one video where he's talking to all these coroners and these funeral home owners in New York City. And they're all saying everyone is getting marked on their death certificate COVID. And one in particular said one of the ladies was like related to one of the Supreme Court justices and was like offended or did not want her sister to have died of COVID. So they did a private investigation and tested her and found it to be negative. Yet her death certificate said COVID-19. Now, I know a lot of people find him very controversial, but
it seemed real.
he's talking to, it feels like he's talking to real people that are working at these morgues
Right.
and at these funeral homes, and they're just like, everyone has COVID-19. But I don't know, I just wonder.
On the death certificate.
On the death certificate. I'm just wondering, like, are they going through all these people and then looking at their medical history to come up with these stats and being like, he had kidney stones a few times, or he had receding hair loss, he tried Rogaine many times. There's a chronic condition here.
So here's what this article says. It says the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said those who are 65 years old and older and people with underlying health conditions including chronic lung disease, cardiovascular disease, obesity, kidney disease, liver disease, and immunosuppressive disorders. That's 2 for you, Patrick.
I just feel like, who do you know over the age of 65 that doesn't have one of those? Like, you might be like, no, I don't have lung disease, cardiovascular disease, I feel pretty good there, I'm not obese. And then you get down there and you're like, man, I do have like an auto-suppressive disorder, I have eczema.
About me. I'm talking about, whoa.
Uh-oh.
Computer went crazy. Did anybody hear that? What was that?
Yeah, we have a little flicker here.
What the heck was that?
I understand, but I'm just saying at the age of 65, because that's what the study is saying. But at some point between the age of 35 and 55, 65, you will get one of these.
I'm in the danger zone.
Yeah, you will get one of these conditions, and I guess you should just look at the statistics right now and say those that are under the age of 40, how many are dying. But at some point, you gradually get into everyone has a chronic disease.
I agree, but for that reason, isn't that even more of a reason to get it soon?
And not wait 10 years to get it?
Yeah. I don't want to get it when I'm 46. Then I'm going to be old and chronically ill like you.
Ben says 50% of the people in the U.S. are obese. That's probably true.
I know. I got to chill on those Nutter Butters.
James says Project Veritas are proven liars, so don't take anything they say. So do take everything that they say with a grain of salt. They have, like, Joe Rogan was recently talking about this, and his argument is just like, yeah, he edits things so that it tells a narrative, but he still has campaign managers recorded secretly saying really offensive stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So,
like, he obviously
he has an agenda.
He has an agenda, and I have no doubt that he probably interviewed some funeral home people who were like, everything seems normal to me.
Yeah.
Everybody's dying of this disease. And then he probably left those out, and then he put the ones of the people in saying, like, these people are not dying from COVID. These people are dying in car accidents, and then COVID's written on their thing, and they're not getting tested because people are afraid to catch it, so they're not testing the corpses.
Well,
like
the
they
big
normally
argument he was making was he was saying that you will get more government funding if people are dying in the hospitals from COVID. And since New York City was hit so hard, economically they're probably going to get hit the hardest. The whole city shut down. I mean, one of the top cities in the world completely shut down. You would see where it's very easy for a governor or for a mayor or some health official to just be like, look, guys, we got to just, like, we can't test everybody, but we need to mark down COVID-19, especially because it's going to help us get the money we need. We're all exhausted. We don't have the PPE. This is a way out. And you could persuade everyone in the hospital community to be like, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
We're seeing people dying left and right. Even if they're dying of other underlying conditions, we think they have COVID. Let's just say COVID.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense, but, like, that's the problem with giving people money. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be giving people money, but it's just, that's the nature of it. It's kind of a catch-22 sort of thing.
James says, watch Joe Rogan, his super fit mate almost died. Haven't seen that.
What do you think's going on with our signal right now?
I don't know. I'm hearing little clicks.
I think our stream is good,
but I'm looking at the levels on the computer, and I'm not seeing any audio spikes. So I don't know what it is.
I woke up this morning, and we went to Walmart. Today was like our 2-week Walmart run. I have some video footage I could probably show. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it later. But I go outside, and I hear the generator on. So I don't know. Everyone's saying, like, make sure your power in your house is good and, you know, make sure everything's running properly. But here in Puerto Rico, we do have to run a lot of our electronics through battery backups. I don't know if that's any part of this, but we have a lot of things plugged into multiple battery backups.
Yeah.
And I wonder, or could it be the little speaker that we're using?
I think that's the speaker making
Could it be dying
noise.
or something?
I don't know what's going on.
But something did happen with our TV where it flickered.
I know. Something's about to explode in here. These are the joys of getting to watch us live.
Steve Robertson.
Don't you want to see this every single day? Make sure you go to the description and subscribe to our brand new F-Stoppers Live YouTube account.
Steve Robertson gives us $10 for more peanut butter Oreos.
Peanut butter Oreo, dude. I was biking today.
You're gonna get.
I know. I'm gonna kill myself with all the chub I'm putting on, man. I'm feeling my man titties bouncing around while I'm biking.
Chronic disorder in like 2 weeks.
That's true. That's true. All right, let's watch this this first Disney video here. Let's see.
Disney's earnings missing estimates coming in an adjusted earnings of 60 cents per share. That's 29 cents lower than analysts' estimates for that EPS number. Revenues beating estimates coming in at $18.01 billion versus an estimate of $17.8 billion. And here in the release, Disney breaks out the cost of COVID, saying they estimate that the COVID-19 impact on operating income at the parks, experiences, and product segment was approximately $1 billion, primarily due to revenue loss loss as a result of the closures. In total, they say they estimate that the COVID-19 impacts the current quarter income from continuing operations was as much as $1.4 billion. That includes the park segment, as well as lower advertising revenue at media networks and direct-to-consumer and international, driven by a decrease in viewership in the current quarter, reflecting COVID-19's impact on live sports and event and higher debt expense. So I'm going to continue to dig in here. They do say that also includes a loss of revenue at studio entertainment due to theater closures. But just want to really quickly note here that the revenues of the media networks were up 28%. That was driven by strength in broadcast with TV ratings up there. Studio entertainment revenues up 18%, whereas we saw significant losses, significant declines in that direct-to-consumer division, and as well as a 10% decline in revenue at the parks division. The operating income, we saw the parks, the operating income at the parks dropped by 58%.
You got to get better at chopping these down. What the heck?
I didn't know when to stop her. She basically just goes on, and it's all these like details. But the basic idea
is Disney's in trouble.
Disney is in trouble.
Disney's in trouble.
She said something in there about the broadcast doing well, but I wonder what kind of shows. I mean, I know people are making or releasing shows now, but at some point they're going to run out of pre-recorded material.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I don't know. I mean, Disney is such a brand. You know, it's like I don't think Disney has had a problem financially in the past. Like maybe their stock dipped a little bit during the last financial crisis and stuff. But I don't see Disney going bankrupt and ESPN going bankrupt.
I mean, ESPN has been in trouble the last few years. I mean, we went up to, well, you didn't go, but we went up to ESPN's headquarters. What is the town they're in? They're just north of New York City, Connecticut, I want to say. And we did that tutorial with Monty Isom where we went and talked with ESPN. And I remember even Monty was like,
COVID-19 just accelerating trends that we already saw.
They've been bought by Disney.
Yeah.
But with no sports or anything, there's nothing for ESPN. I mean, we had the draft, the NFL draft recently.
Is that something to watch?
People watch it.
And what's happening?
Well, in this episode, or this season, everyone's at like home or on their yacht. You know, all these guys are billionaires. And they just tell you, like they count down, and then they tell you which person from the draft, from college, they're going to take onto their team. But sports fans love it. Like they go to sports bars and everyone's watching the draft. And I mean, that's all it was last week. And
how do people, I guess you're just such a fan of football that you know the best college players?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can do a whole fantasy thing where you're betting money and stuff on who's going to go where, and you want to see who has the first-round picks, and you want to see your player from college that you love become a first-round pick, but then you want to see which teams get what and what trade deals are going on. It's a whole different side to the NFL season. I'm not really into it, but like I think we were talking a few weeks ago, what happens if the NFL just says, you know what, we're not going to have a season at all? I think right now they're talking about having a season with no fans, but imagine if they get to the point where they're like, we're not going to have a season at all. This is too risky. We don't want these top athletes. I mean, your argument would be they're the healthiest people in the world.
Yeah.
But from their point of view, is these are their largest assets.
Right.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's still worth putting their lives at jeopardy to at least have a season. Because if you cancel everything, it's going to be unheard of. Like, we've never been in that world. But ESPN's obviously going to suffer from that.
Well, going back to Disney and the Disney parks specifically, that's what I'm really worried about.
I saw from the thumbnail you looked very happy to be at Disney World. But you've been to how many Disney parks in the last like 18 months? 3 or 4, like 5 times?
Maybe. I've been to a few Disney parks around the world. And I've been watching some videos. I've been kind of up on the news on, you know, when the parks could open. And there's certainly not a clear answer yet. But some people are speculating that it could be in June. Maybe I don't know if it's the beginning of June or mid-June or what. And then there are all these recommendations from the state of Florida. I believe it's from the state. I don't think it's from the county, but of what these theme parks should do. And many of these things seem pretty significant. It's like keeping the 6-foot distance between people in lines and stuff waiting. Like how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like you have to cut the amount of people that are allowed to come into the parks,
Yeah.
which could be the greatest Disney experience ever. You'd kind of be able to go in and just have...
Could you make ticket prices higher because of that?
That's an interesting idea.
Or would you keep prices the same because you're trying to get people to feel comfortable coming back?
That's an interesting... I mean, I would gladly pay extra money to have fewer crowds and,
I mean,
you run the
standing,
park.
I mean, you can go to Disney World and you do the fast pass and everything, but you could easily stand in line for an hour or two on some of these rides.
Oh, easily.
Could you imagine standing in line for 2 hours, not under the covering, in the heat, July heat, and not able to easily talk to your friends that you're hanging out with? I mean, some of the lines, like, you might be able to be 6 feet away from front to back, but not side to side. The line's like right there.
Yeah, it snakes back and forth. Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible. So that's why people are like, don't worry, it's just a recommendation. They're probably not going to have to do that. Sam Smith says Apple will buy Disney now that it's cheaper. I have seen some speculation of that. But, we also talked about yesterday, Apple just had to take out a loan for something because a lot of their cash that they have is held up overseas. And maybe there's some game that can be played where Disney moves assets to something overseas rather than in the States. I don't know how that would work, but...
Did I see that Apple released a MacBook Pro 13-inch or something yesterday?
Yeah, they updated the MacBook Pro. It just kind of seems like the same. Like, I think they fixed the keyboard everybody hates and slightly faster processor, still no dedicated graphics card, but now it's compatible with their $5,000 monitor if you want.
Well, if you have a 13-inch, maybe you want the... Did that ever come out? You were going to do some viral thing with it, but did...
It did come out.
Yeah.
It did come out. It was just...
Back-ordered?
No, it was just...
Such demand?
It was very expensive, and the fact that we don't have Apple stores here in Puerto Rico, I was just nervous that I was going to buy this thing to make this funny video with, and I was going to struggle to get it back to the store. If I was in Charleston, I would have just walked it into the store and been done with it. But, yeah...
Well, I had one more video queued up for Disney.
Okay.
If you thought that one was too technical, this one might be a little bit more.
Let's see.
More up your speed.
Big headline here, Eric, is that Disney is now saying they're planning to reopen Shanghai Disneyland on May 11th. That's certainly a big symbolic step, even though other parks will remain closed around the world. What's your headline takeaway from these results?
Well, Disney's willing to open up these parks early in order to preserve revenue. But Shanghai Disneyland is a relatively small part of their overall parks business, and their parks business in the U.S. still remains closed and likely will remain closed, or at least seeing significantly reduced revenue for the foreseeable future.
That's where I want to be.
Meantime, let's talk a little bit about the other parts of the results here. Of course, you've got movies, you've got ESPN, you've got Disney Plus, which is really the bright spot. The company saying at the end of the quarter they had 33.5 million subscribers, but we know in April they released an even more updated number that they surpassed 50 million subscribers. Walk us through how much Disney Plus can buoy them through this time.
Well, the Disney Plus news is certainly fantastic. Looking back to when they announced Disney Plus back in 2019, they gave a guidance of about 60 million to 90 million worldwide subscribers by the end of 2024. They're already approaching that guidance fairly quickly in mid or early 2020. That being said, Disney Plus doesn't exist in a vacuum. A lot of the growth, or a lot of the reason why they're going direct to consumer with Disney Plus is to help supercharge other parts of their business, namely their parks and their movies business, which remains closed right now. So while the growth is very impressive, it is a little bittersweet.
Now, I don't know if this is true. You're doing a bad job of switching cameras, Patrick.
Sorry, I was reading ahead.
But I read someone online say that Disney needs to have 75 million subscribers before they are profitable.
Really?
I don't know if that's true. That might have been a comment.
What was the number though? 2024. They were supposed to have like 90 million, and they already have
60 to 90 million.
And they already have 50 million.
Yeah.
In the first 6 months. How long has Disney Plus been?
Yeah,
around?
it hasn't been very long.
It seems like great news. I bought Disney stock a while back. I don't know what it's doing now. I try not to look at a lot of those, but if everything can get back open and running, and they don't have issues with, because they got the cruise lines. That was another story I wanted to put in here. Apparently, Norwegian is filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've also got this article pulled up here where this ad is freaking out. So if you have epilepsy, don't look at this. But this is just some lists of companies that are on the verge of bankruptcy. I mean, we've heard of all of these: J. Crew, Gap, JCPenney, Neiman Marcus, Sears, Tyson Foods, Gold's Gym. Like, what in the world?
Sears, I thought they were already closed. But
Sears is alive and kicking here in Puerto Rico. For some reason, it's the only place it's successful is here. But look at this. This airline is losing $1 million an hour.
That's funny because I just read an article, I think, on CNN that said that they were prospering during this time because they're doing all this cargo. I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline, and so it's funny that they're saying that they are losing that much money.
Airbnb announced, what did they say? They were going to lay off
25% of their employees they're laying off.
Yep. Hertz got an emergency lifeline from lenders. Car companies are having difficulty too. Ford told investors it will lose $5 billion next quarter. And then obviously the oil companies are going crazy. So, I mean, I think people forget how long it took for us to hit bottom after the 2008 crisis. The bottom was like 2012 for the stock market, or is that true? 2011? I mean, what year did we buy our houses? We bought our houses at
2013, I think.
13 or 14 was the bottom of the housing. You know, it's like
somebody said that when the airline market, I saw this on Reddit, somebody works for an airline and they were asking their elder workers, coworkers, what was it like in 2008? And they said when the airlines hit rock bottom, it took 2 full years for the stock to recover, which doesn't feel like that long. Somebody was making the joke, you know, like, oh, good luck holding on to that forever. I'm like, 2 years, if you could buy the bottom, and in many cases, it would double or quadruple in that time.
Yeah.
Like 2 years to have your money double or quadruple seems like anyone would take that if you could predict the bottom.
Yeah.
The problem is you were just telling me, where's the stock market right now compared to the last 10 years?
I looked this morning, and I think we are back to October 2019 levels of the value of the stock market.
So like 7 months ago?
Imagine that.
That's insanity.
That is the definition of insanity. I mean, we were at like record high everything in October. We had the lowest unemployment of all time. We had the highest stock market. You know, it's just the entire world is closed down. We have 30 million people unemployed now. We looked it up. It appears that currently we have double the amount of people that were unemployed at the peak of the 2008 financial crisis. I think the peak of unemployment might have been in 2000. I don't remember. We just looked at it yesterday, but it was like 2010. I'm just gonna guess. We had something like 15 million unemployed, and now we have 30 million unemployed, and we're literally just getting started. We've only been doing this for 2 months.
Somebody's saying Ruth Bader Ginsburg is being treated for gallbladder infection. She's one of our Supreme Court justices.
A super old one.
Yeah, and people are worried she will die, and then Trump will appoint another justice there. Somebody's asking what I'm drinking. This is a margarita. And then somebody is in Destin saying the beaches are open, but they had a guy dressed as the Grim Reaper. We had that video a few days ago.
Yeah, but wasn't he in...
He was in Miramar.
Oh, okay. He wasn't in Miami.
No, he was like, it's in between Destin and Panama City Beach.
That guy's getting around a little bit. And for anybody who's watching us live right now, we would greatly appreciate you subscribing to our new F-Stoppers Live YouTube channel. In the somewhat near future, we're going to be moving all of our live videos over to that separate YouTube channel as to not piss off all of our loyal photography followers. Let's watch this next video here. 3 Russian doctors fall out of windows. I keep reading this. I was like, Russian doctor falls out of window. That's weird. I wonder if he committed suicide. Then it was a few days later, it was like, second doctor falls out of Russian hospital window. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. And now we're up to number 3. So So let's check this out.
Well, this is a potentially very dark development in Russia, where a doctor who criticized conditions at his hospital on social media is now fighting for his life after falling out of a second-story window. Alexander Shulapov, a doctor who works in an ambulance in the city of Voronezh, is now in a serious condition with head injuries, according to local media reports. Earlier, he'd been diagnosed with coronavirus and had posted defiant messages online saying he'd been forced to work after testing positive. Shulapov later retracted his comments before plunging out of a window in unclear circumstances. One of his colleagues has told CNN that he's preparing to be discharged from the hospital where he'd been receiving treatment. What's provoking so much speculation on social media is that this is the third Russian doctor who's mysteriously fallen out of a window in recent weeks. Earlier this month, a doctor in the Siberian city of Krasnoyarsk died of her injuries after falling during a meeting with local health officials. Local media said the doctor had opposed the changing of her hospital into a coronavirus facility because of lack of protective gear, although the regional health department has issued a statement denying that. Last month, the head of medical services at Star City, the main training base for Russian cosmonauts, also died after falling out of a window. The authorities there called it a tragic accident and gave no further details. What we do know, though, is that the Russian healthcare system and the medical staff who work in it are under increasing pressure as the coronavirus pandemic ravages across the country.
What is a cosmonaut? There's a song, I can't think of it, but it has cosmonaut in it. Russian cosmonauts. You know what that is?
Is it not their name for astronauts?
I don't know.
I don't know, but anybody who it seems like some of these people are just suggesting that hey, we need to prepare for this coronavirus, and then people are throwing them out of windows.
I think, so we just capture some of the video because it's the most interesting thing to watch, but I think there's an element of the Russian government is forcing people back into work, or they're pressuring them. There's something going on with the government, and it's kind of like China silencing the original doctors that came forward,
right?
Announcing it. So there's more to the story, but can we stop using the word fall out of windows and change fall to jump?
Well,
nobody's falling. Like, falling out of a window is like you're being cool and you got your butt up against the windowsill and you fall backwards,
But jumping out of a window suggests that you did it on your own
I
accord.
can't imagine somebody accidentally fell. That just seems weird. I got onto...
Well, somebody can't accidentally jump out of a window.
I'm not saying accident. Don't put the word accident. Just change it from Russian doctors jump out of window.
No, but that would be suicide at that point. And we are not assuming that it's suicide.
I don't know what we're arguing here. Pushed out of... You think they're pushed?
Yes.
Okay, push is better.
But we don't have proof of that. All we know
is that
they have fallen from a great height. So that's what the story must be.
Maybe a month or two ago, back when all this was starting, I got on Live Leaks, which was kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
And I was watching videos out of China, and there's a video of just somebody who I think I put links to it in our third video. It was all these leaked videos out of China. And they just have this shot of a room, and this guy just looks and just jumps out the window, and everyone in there is like, oh my God. And he looked healthy, but...
And was there a story behind it?
No, it was just a video clip. It was just
China,
a guy in China jumps out window, but they at least acknowledged that he jumped. It wasn't like he fell with forward momentum.
Well, Logan says, I'm not even sure I can read this word, hold on, let me get this here. Defenestration. Defenestration is the technical term for throwing someone out of a window. No joke.
Well, the news isn't going to put that in the title of their headlines because no one would know what that is.
No one would know what that is. And this next guy says, Pittsburgh research killed in murder-suicide. I don't know what Pittsburgh research killed means.
Somebody's upset that we don't know what a cosmonaut is.
What is a cosmonaut?
I don't know.
Cosmonaut. An astronaut or cosmonaut is a person trained by a human spaceflight program to command, pilot, or serve as a crew member in a spacecraft. So I was right. I do know what it is. This clicking that's going on here is absolutely driving me crazy. Why don't I play this next video, Patrick? I'm going to cut to this video like it's a real news show, and you quickly get up and you figure out what the heck is going on. Go, Patrick. Figure it out. Here. Hurry, Patrick. Go. You have 15 seconds.
You're just going to have to talk about this story.
Wait, what is this clip you've even shown here?
Well, they don't have a video clip, but this is an article published on a Canadian news site. And in this article, I can't speak whatever this is, Mandarin or what is the other?
Cantonese.
Cantonese.
Okay.
That article apparently was pulled off of Chinese news stories. Like, it's one of these stories that's like redacted or censored. And in that, apparently they're saying that the unemployment rate in China is 20%.
Right.
And I believe what China is coming out, and I need to find the story, and it may not be in English, but they're saying that they have only 5% unemployment, which is, I don't know what 5% unemployment is in China. In America, 3 is like the best ever.
Yeah.
So 5 doesn't seem all that bad. 5 surely doesn't seem that bad, at least in America, under the circumstances. But I think I had some notes here on my phone.
Huh. So the basic story is that China is trying to cover up the number of unemployed they have.
The Communist Party official numbers for Q1 are 5.9% unemployment, so 6%, but then 2.29 million new jobs created. But that article, which is in another language on a Canadian news organization site, is saying 20% unemployment. Now you got to remember, China is reopening. Since we started our podcast like a month or two ago, I think we were saying all these factories are up and running, and there's electricity, and there's no smoke coming out. We can't tell if they're actually working.
It's like the CO2 levels have dropped, but the factory lights are on.
They're acting like they're going back to work 2 months ago. But yet here we are today with even more time from them being open, and their unemployment is 20%. So what does that say? I know you can't say China, the United States will be China, but could we be at 20% unemployment in 3 months from now?
What do you think we're at right now? Are we at, I think we're at 15% unemployment right now, because if I remember correctly, America has around 150 million jobs. We currently have 30 million unemployed. Is that math? If it was, or would that be 20% unemployment? Because if we had 100 million jobs and 30
That's 20%.
Million, so we're
at 20% right now. 20%. But the thing we have to remember is a lot of companies have this PPP money, and they're just holding out and just paying their employees to be employed because the government is backing them.
Yeah.
The second that all of this happens, maybe we should look at the United Airlines prepares to fire employees video, because this kind of touches on that idea.
All right.
United Airlines may be getting ready for job cuts in the fall. Reuters says internal memos indicate 3,400 manager and administrative positions could be cut in October. Pilots could be affected as well. United is one of the airlines that got government aid to protect jobs. But that aid only bans cuts before September 30th, and officials with the pilots union say they're expecting layoffs as soon as the 1st of October. And with travel all but shut down, rental car companies are also being stopped in their tracks. Avis reported a first quarter loss of nearly $160 million. They warn revenues will be down even more in April and May. And the deal to make Victoria's Secret private is officially off. The owner, L Brands, has agreed to drop its agreement with Sycamore Partners. Sycamore balked at the deal after the coronavirus shutdowns hit. And Taco Bell wants to help you celebrate on the Cinco de Mayo. Today only, they're offering what they call an at-home taco bar. Everything you need to make your own tacos. It will feed 6 for $25.
Well, we probably should have had that news for you guys a little earlier than just now, but Taco Bell's hooking people up. But what's interesting about the beginning of this clip was the way the government has written these laws is they're saying you can't fire anybody until, I think, October 1st. So a lot of these companies, like, you are unemployed, but because we're taking all of this bailout money, we can't fire you until October 1st. And you've deleted all of my links in the description. So I'm trying
to not delete. I think what we were
doing.
You
saved over.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but United Airlines said something to their employees today in an internal memo that was like, we highly recommend you voluntarily distance yourself from the airline. Like, we're recommending that you quit now. And I don't know where that falls, where like you kind of have to be fired to get unemployment. I don't think you can just quit. But if you look up...
yeah, it's not showing up here. Yeah, I mean, that is the problem.
So, I mean, that could push us all the way till October. I mean, that's a long ways away. But imagine if a large percentage of these huge corporations aren't going to fire people till October. That's a very delayed reaction.
Yep.
Now, I guess the hope is business comes right back. And they say, we didn't have to do that. We were warning people we're probably going to have to fire you October 1st. But, like, business has been great.
Yep.
But I don't know if it's going to be that easy.
If you were just looking at the stock market, then yeah, you would think, oh, we're just about to flip a switch and turn everything back on and everybody go back to work. All right, let's watch this next clip here. Kramer, Tennessee pledge.
Oh, this is good.
But even if that doesn't happen, there's one teensy tiny problem with this whole plan. Running a business in the time of COVID is a nightmare. I know our government has thrown a lot of money at small businesses, but how the heck do you run a business when it's pretty much illegal to turn a profit? As the part owner of a couple restaurants, I've been itching to hit the ground running when we reopen. However, it's a lot more complicated than just opening our doors again. No one really knows any of the rules of what it's going to be like health-wise. But we did get a glimpse with this thing called the Tennessee Pledge. It's the new rules and regulations, including for reopening restaurants, that we got from Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee. These rules are safe and healthy for the customer, which is great. But there's simply no way most restaurants can possibly obey them without going right out of business. Let me give you the specs. First, when a customer shows up, you have to ask them whether they've been in close contact with a confirmed case of COVID-19, whether they have a cough, shortness of breath, or a sore throat, whether they've had a fever in the last 48 hours. They give you those answers. Then you have to take their temperature. Oh, they'll love that. Over 100.4 degrees, no service. Once your customers get through that pleasant gauntlet, they'll be seated by our masked and gloved employees at tables that are 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart. For one of our restaurants, the Fancher one, that means we can only use 4 out of 11 tables. We have to take out 7 tables. Better still, you can't have more than 6 people at any given table. The large groups are what makes you the most money. Make it up at the bar, maybe, you ponder. Nope, no bar. Closed. That's the biggest profit center for most restaurants, and it's shut down until the state gets a better handle on the virus. Now, look, I take this virus very seriously. I want us to do everything in our power to beat it. I'm glad the state of Tennessee understands that if you have to choose between the health of the citizens and the profitability of the small businesses, I'm glad they're picking health. It's the right thing to do. But from my perspective as a small business owner, all I can say is, well, check, please.
I mean, that's what we've been talking about for weeks now. Just because they allow people to go back outside, how in the world are restaurants going to survive? Even if a lot of that stuff that he just mentioned isn't the case in a couple months from now, if your server still has to wear a mask and gloves, that's not very appetizing.
A lot of going out to eat is the experience, and if the experience is dreadful,
yeah,
like you're not going to want to do that.
You'd just rather stay inside.
I think the title of that article or that news clip was Kramer predicts 30% of all restaurants will declare bankruptcy, which doesn't sound that bad.
It doesn't, because I've heard that aren't restaurants the fastest industry to fail?
They're the canary in the coal mine.
Well, no, not that. But they fail anyway. It's like one of the most difficult businesses to make successful, and
their margins are so small that going bankrupt in a business is likely.
Yeah, so 30% seems like what percentage of?
Maybe I had it wrong. Maybe it was 30% survived. But it
that seems a little more reasonable. I mean, just thinking about Charleston and how many incredible restaurants we have. And you can open a great restaurant in Charleston, but if it's not world class, you'll go out of business in 6 months. You'll go out of business. So,
unless you're like Church's Chicken, somehow that's been there for the whole time I've lived there.
Yeah, people love that.
Church's Chicken here is really popular, though.
Speaking of supply and demand, like we have been, over the course of this entire series. The cost of things going up, and don't you think
photographers need to raise the price?
No. Don't you think that the most valuable person in the near future would be someone with COVID antibodies.
Well, did you see a day or two ago, we get these alerts on curfew that, hey, you have 30 minutes to get home because we're under curfew. The other day we got one at like 1 p.m. and I was like, what is this? It's all in Spanish, so I typed it in. And it appeared that the government was asking for people to donate blood who have already recovered from COVID. Now, the interesting thing about that, I don't know if you have your world-o-meters up here, but how many people have been diagnosed with COVID in Puerto Rico and now have recovered? I mean, aren't they saying only like 50 people or 100 people in Puerto Rico?
No.
Is it way more than that?
Oh, yeah. Those are the deaths. We had around 100 deaths. Yeah,
Okay.
so we have 99 deaths, but 1,900.
Okay, but it's still a very small, like, what do we have, 3 million people?
Yeah, but
So-
2,000 people, I mean, that's a decent amount of people, I'm sure, especially if you paid them to give blood or plasma or whatever. They'd be more than happy to do it.
It's
And
0.06% of the population. So they're sending out that message for,
you would think that the
They just have-
hospitals would have the patients' phone numbers.
yeah.
Because they've come in to get tested and stuff. But my point is that imagine you own a fancy restaurant. Like maybe you couldn't get
And
away
all
with
your
this.
employees already had it. You could be the one
Yeah,
restaurant.
you say like, listen, guys, I'm gonna pay you $40 an hour to come work at my steak restaurant, and every single person who comes through my
has
door,
to do the test and be positive for the antibodies.
yeah, that's the only way you'll get hired. But all the
be-
people making the food,
a crazy idea.
everyone. I mean, is it that crazy, especially in New York with the numbers being as high as they are? What are they saying in New York City and Manhattan? 25% of the people
You might be
have
onto
it?
something. If Hall's restaurant in Charleston could be like, look, we are going to pay you $50 an hour. Maybe for a restaurant, you just have to pay, like Hall's. I mean, how much do they make on tips?
You could pay people negative $20 an hour and they'd still make $150 an
But
hour.
you say
from
you got to
tips.
come here, you got to work, and we're going to guarantee every. But then you risk like surely you couldn't do that if legally you had to follow these rules. Because what is he calling that? The Tennessee Promise or the Tennessee?
I don't know. You're just
Click
talking
on
about
the thing there. It was the Tennessee Pledge. And that's just because the state of Tennessee has come up with these guidelines. I don't know
Right.
for certain that that's applying to New York City, but if the states say you have to do these process, you
Well, I
have
mean, think about it. It does make sense. If you have customers and a customer on that table over there has the virus and doesn't know it, and they're eating and they're getting their virus all over the plate, and then the server comes and picks up the plate, puts it in the back, grabs your plate, gives it to you, I guess you just get it like that. So even if the server doesn't have
the dishwashers spraying the dishes and it's all going everywhere.
Yeah.
But if everyone in your restaurant was tested and they came up positive for the antibodies, remember there was 2 different antibodies, IgM,
yeah.
I think, and IgG. One of them, maybe it was IgM, you would only have that for a month and then it would get very weak because your body isn't producing that anymore. I don't know. I don't feel like we know enough about this virus to even get to that point, but it's an interesting idea. We haven't had too many super chats to keep up with.
I know.
I'm trying to
I don't
read the other
understand what these
messages,
people are
but
talking about. Derek says Baba Booey. I don't know what that means. All right, let's watch this final video here. I saw a little something about this. I don't really understand what happened.
2 Americans have been captured in Venezuela. That nation's embattled President
You are
Nicolas
the
Maduro
absolute
says.
worst. Can I just go ahead, flip back to the screen? When you record a screen, why don't you make it full screen?
because I want people to see the source. I want people to be able to go to because you deleted all of my links. So I thought, let me show Venezuela claims to have captured 2 Americans and then go full screen.
I apologize.
I thought you were complaining about my
apologize.
switching.
Yeah, that sucks
There's got to
too.
be a way to like automate it to where instead of having to go on screen and then you go to the camera.
Do it right,
You don't
Patrick.
have both of them up
Do it right.
there.
Here we go.
The men were part of a failed plot to invade the country. He claims their plan was to kill him. CNN's Barbara Starr joins us now with these breaking details. Barbara, what do we make of the veracity of Maduro's comments and the identity of these 2 men?
Well, John, it is a mystery this morning. We've reached out to the Trump administration overnight, haven't heard back. But Nicolas Maduro appearing on television in Venezuela and showing, there are a number of videos now appearing that appear to show 2 Americans amongst a group that has been captured. Maduro says they were out to conduct a coup against him. Now, these Americans have been identified as Aaron Berry and Luke Denman. They are said to be former U.S. military, still to be confirmed. These videos, including these men in a boat with their hands up, also show U.S. passports, U.S. documentation. All of this still to be confirmed. It is said that they worked for a Florida-based security company called Silvercorp, run by another former U.S. Green Beret named Jordan Goudreau, according to the.
I love that they only have like 2 seconds of B-roll, and they're like, just loop it. Let's just loop the B-roll.
Washington Post. But look, all of these details still to be sorted out. Maduro has been the subject of multiple coup attempts. He believes the U.S., of course, very strongly out to get him. The U.S. opposed to his regime, clearly. So what happens now? Is there any chance of getting these men back? We have seen over the years U.S. people, U.S. citizens fight on behalf of other countries, on behalf of insurgent groups. Very difficult to get them back. The Trump administration, again this morning, still not officially commenting on this very mysterious story.
That is so weird. That is so weird. I mean, are people hinting that, like, the United States sent in secret military people to murder the Venezuelan leader?
It's so funny because I'm reading this book,
Yeah.
Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and he's talking about this over and over and over again. He has this story that I just heard yesterday. It's a country called Seychelles. Maybe it's like islands off of Africa. And he winds up meeting this guy who's like this like black belt. He's in this sparring class. And he starts hearing this guy has all these things in common with him. And he finds out that this guy was one of the guys that was like helicoptered in, sent by America to assassinate the president. And then immediately what they do is they leave, they get right out, and the local opposition forces come in and take over. It's kind of what happened in Libya. Like, I can't remember the Libyan story, but you go in there, maybe we go in and kill Gaddafi, but then we get out secretly and the public never knows this. I don't know that this would happen in Libya, but this is what he says happens over and over and over and over again, especially in these Central American, South American countries. Our government goes down there and says, you know what? We're going to assassinate this president because we do not like the way that he's running his policies. And then we're going to get our operatives out. And no one's ever going to know. It's not technically the military. It's like these mercenaries, which is what those people look like. And then the opposing government comes in and does a coup. And the whole locals say, oh, the opposition killed the president and took over.
Right.
And no one ever knows. Like, I literally just heard this guy talk about this yesterday, although he talks about it all throughout the book. So when I saw that story, I'm like, this sounds exactly like what Confessions of an Economic Hitman's talking about. And we are also, ironically, in this oil war with Russia and Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela has been one of the largest oil producers in the world for the last 30 years or so. So it all just seems very ironic to me. And I'm like, this is what the guy claims America does. We send these people in. He calls them the jackals. It's right before the military. Like, he's an economic hitman. He will go talk to the president and say, look, we can do all this stuff for your country if you let us do this and give all the businesses in America the contracts. And when the government and politicians say, we're not going to do that, they send in people like that to go murder him. And if that fails, like it just did, the next thing is the government goes and declares war on them, which is kind of what they did in Panama. I know people got upset about the Panama story, but these are all sort of related. So I know I've been saying, watch, America's going to go to war with somebody. I don't know that it's going to be Venezuela, but that is a contending country. And now that they apparently have Americans held hostage, I don't know. Maybe it's all coincidence, but you think the story sounds crazy and insane, and then here I am I'm not. This is exactly what I've been filling my mind for the last month.
I'm not saying that it's insane like that didn't just happen. I mean, I just saw
Yeah.
the same B-roll 55 times of the guys captured. These guys are employees of some security company in Florida. Like, are you kidding me? That sounds like the most obvious undercover.
For their what?
It said these mercenaries work for some security company in Florida. Like,
That's what happens. So the government can't possibly be seen as hiring these people. So what they do is they have these companies, like Raytheon would be a good one. You know, some company like that, you know, Lockheed Martin. Some company that's like got all these contracts around the world and supply arms to people. Maybe that's too obvious, and so they pick these other smaller companies. But that's what this guy claims they do all the time, and the government will pay that company in Florida government contracts that will never be associated with this.
Right.
But it's like an unspoken thing, or there's operatives, CIA or whatever. You know, you look into the CIA like trying to kill all the, you know, I think people think Bob Marley was killed by the CIA. It's not an uncommon conspiracy theory through the history of the United States. And so that's how they would do it, and hopefully they would have killed the president. But it shows you that there is a bounty on the president of Venezuela's head right now. Somebody's definitely trying to kill that guy.
That's just so crazy. You know, I don't want to speculate that our government is trying to murder other world leaders when I don't know. Like, I really don't know anything more than that CNN clip and a headline that I read earlier today. But that's just so crazy to think about. Man.
It is. Yeah, people in here are talking about the jackals. Somebody knows what I'm talking about.
Is it a jackal or a jekyll?
Jackal?
A jekyll.
Jekyll? I don't
know. Well, I think that wraps up all of the stuff that we want to talk about.
There is one other comment that was made here, and I'm now getting texts about it.
Okay.
And that is, let me pull it up here because somebody sent me a link. What is the guy's name? Lanier? The photographer with the hat that we were talking about the other day that gets in fights with the angry photographer? Jason Lanier? He got arrested.
Oh, really?
And a lot of I heard that and I thought like maybe it has to do with the models that he did all the sketchy stuff with.
Yeah.
But apparently it says California man. Here he is right here. I don't know if you can see the video. You know that guy?
I have seen that guy before. California man arrested during Reopen NC protest in Raleigh. What did he do?
I haven't gotten that far.
Well, you read.
It looks like maybe he was filming an interview and he was not supposed to be out, which seems very innocent. Like, that's a horrible way to get arrested, but...
Yeah. Modern American Pro says, what happens to real estate? Buy at low INT or wait? What is INT? I don't know. I have a buddy who's about to buy an extremely expensive house, and he's super pumped because he thinks he's about to save 10%. And
Wait, say this again?
I'm just answering this guy's question about should he buy real estate
Somebody's
now
about
or
to be
wait.
punked because he's... what were you just saying?
I just said there's a guy I know who's about to buy a very expensive house.
Oh, okay.
I think he's crazy. He's pumped because he's saving 10%. And I don't think that's enough under the circumstances.
Yeah, but the housing market might not crash for another 2 years. Like, it may be very delayed as well.
Right, but why would you buy a house knowing that it's going to crash in 2 years, especially when you don't need it?
It's so tempting to buy, though. Like, people hate when you have some money and you want some security.
No, he can't live in it. He lives here, and he's buying a house back in the States.
Oh, well, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to rent it out for a couple years while I keep working down here, and then I'm going to move into the house. And I'm like, just wait. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, man. Everybody's scared right now. This is the bottom of the market. And the second we go back outside.
Going through today's headlines, I read a headline that said the housing market's actually going up right now. That people are selling houses for more than they have been recently.
I mean, I could see that because I would imagine maybe the supply is low at the moment. People are holding off. They don't want people walking through their houses to check them out, to buy them. So they're like, we'll wait until summer before we put our houses on the market and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, how are you able to show a house right now if you're still living in it? People in quarantine aren't able to show their homes, right?
Well,
maybe virtual photography and real estate photography could be like more in demand right now because you're more likely to let one person come in and photograph your house to have nobody see the house, but at least you have good pictures of it.
I also think a lot of extremely expensive homes in many cases are people's, third, fourth, fifth home, and they're empty all the time anyway. I mean, we always talk about that here in our neighborhood in Puerto Rico. I don't know this to be true, but I always joke that I think 80% of the dwellings in this neighborhood are empty at any given time. It just seems like this neighborhood's always empty, and these are people's second and third homes. So if you're selling a multi-million-dollar house and somebody's got cash, we hear all the time people are buying these houses in here without even coming to visit. They just look at a few crappy pictures online, that's enough, and they go, okay, here's $3 million.
Yeah, but the people buying houses here are a totally different group of people.
Well, that's what I'd be interested to know. Like, what is the demographic of people that are currently buying houses when there's literally lockdowns in the United States and you cannot go outside? How in the world can you buy a house? I mean, think about all the hoops we had to jump through when we bought our first houses, and we're meeting with lawyers, and we got to meet with the inspector, and all this stuff is not happening right now.
But those were normal things. I mean, we also had to deal with like the Patriot Act stuff, where they were like, you're getting paid by this company, F-Stoppers. Who are they? And is the money that you're putting down on your house like legit money? And
we need a letter from your CPA saying that it would be acceptable for you to spend this money out of your business account, and that your business won't go bankrupt from doing this. I'm like, how is this anyone's business? But
to be fair, a lot of that was because we were buying houses when F-Stoppers didn't have many tax returns, and we were still wedding photographers, and I don't know, maybe there's like a ratio of income versus debt or something. But all I'm saying is, like, there's a lot that goes into buying a house, and I would imagine now there's a credit crunch, I would think. I haven't read a lot about that, but it feels like if banks are feeling like they may be on the hook for all of this money they just gave all these small businesses, they should not be on the hook, but they're worried about it. I'm sure they're like, man, we just gave out $330 billion in these loans. Let's kind of wait and see what's going to happen.
Right.
Maybe they're totally different divisions. Maybe like real estate is something different, but profits for banks can't possibly be good at the moment.
I wouldn't think so. Big shout out to Touche Films here. I think you made him an admin. He's currently plugging our new YouTube channel. If you guys are new to this live stream, we are starting an F-Stoppers live YouTube channel. The link is in the description, and Touche Films just posted it here. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers tonight on it, because I don't think we're allowed to do live streams until we get 1,000 subscribers. So we might have to keep pushing people towards this channel before we can actually use it.
People are like questioning and debating if Cinco de Mayo is popular in Florida and why are Americans celebrating. I think this might be one of the most popular holidays in America. They give
it's not one of
you have the big ones. You have like Easter and Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
But if you take those out,
yeah,
would you say that Cinco de Mayo is bigger than St. Patrick's Day?
Maybe.
4th of July is the 5th one. Like, that's up there. But Cinco de Mayo is huge, and it's just because people like to get drunk and eat Mexican food.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know what it's about.
I don't know what it's about.
It's the Battle of Pueblo.
I still don't know what that's about.
Look it up. It's not. A lot of people think it's like Mexico's Independence Day. That's not what it is, but...
All right, we're up to 290 subscribers, so we're almost to 1/3 of the way. We're really not. We got a ways to go, but we're 30% of the way.
Timo says, we put our house on the market March 12th, and we were under contract by March 30th for the highest price ever in the neighborhood. I don't know what that means, though, because it could be that nobody sold a house in that neighborhood in the last year or two, and they just broke that record, Like, it's kind of hard to say. Now, if you had a house that sold in 2020, and, or it could just be that your house is better, it's bigger, it's got a larger plot, the land's bigger, it's better.
But, I mean, it still shows something. Whenever there's like a record-breaking sale in the town, city, county, neighborhood, road, street, it's a big deal. And I just wouldn't think people at this moment would want to buy the most expensive house in a neighborhood when the entire world is sheltering in place and there's no hope on the horizon. I do not get it.
Well, it feels like you're going to be in two different camps. You're either going to be so loaded that you're like, I'll buy whatever I want, whenever I want.
Yeah.
Or you're in the camp where you're like thinking, what will the future look like? What will my job look like? Is this a risky situation right now?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody kind of in the middle, you know? I guess there could be, but it just feels like those people would just wait and say, I could maybe get this house a lot cheaper. I'm going to wait a year or so. I'm in no rush and no hurry. Maybe there's a fourth camp. It's the people that just can't afford a house at all.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that's the biggest group of people.
Well, you know what? My buddy who is, super excited to buy a house right now, one of his reasons was that we have all-time low interest rates and they're going to go up. So, you can just afford a much more expensive house right now. And I'm like, I don't think interest rates are going to be going up anytime soon. When did they try to raise interest rates? At like the end of 2018, and the stock market plummeted.
I think they started raising interest rates back in September, October of that year, because it slowly went down. But by the time we got to December, it was like, oh my gosh, the stock market's almost down 20%, and it was kind of a gradual. It was a gradual thing, but over 3 months, that doesn't feel gradual. It still feels like, oh my gosh. There's some people from Mexico who are like, we don't even celebrate Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, really?
I didn't know that, but
what's the celebration in Mexico where they dress up like the skeletons?
I should know the name of that. But
they did it at the beginning of the last, I think it was the last James Bond movie. It's like the most epic intro to a movie
Is
ever.
that like November 1st or something?
I don't know.
It's the day after Halloween, I think.
I do not know. Hey, we are up to 352 new subscribers on our new channel. Check it out in the description. I see 676 of you currently watching us live. Just click over there, subscribe. If we do crappy content, just unsubscribe in a day.
Do you know how long we need those subscribers before YouTube opens that up?
Maybe it just needs to reach 1,000 and then I just click go and then everyone can unsubscribe. I don't know. I don't know how it works. But I figured it might take a few days before we get to 1,000 subscribers. But there's also a good chance, the majority of our views don't come live. We only have 700 people in here right now. But over the course of the next 24 hours, we'll probably get 10 or 15,000 views.
Boca Balls says Lee versus Patrick, Lee versus Pie. DMT challenge.
Man. Listen to Joe Rogan talk about DMT. I'm like, it's interesting.
What is DMT? It's the one that
lasts
lasts for 5 minutes?
Something like that.
But it's the most intense. Is it like ayahuasca or it's like this crazy?
I think it might be a similar drug to what's in ayahuasca, but ayahuasca makes you physically ill and throw up and diarrhea, and it can last a long time.
It's like days. You're like in these South American jungles and stuff.
And DMT is just this thing that you can do, and it just lasts 10 or 15 minutes.
That's kind of appealing about it. But is it one of the things like psychedelics where it changes your mind forever?
I think it could,
or it awakens you, and you're still you, but you now have had this experience where you're seeing the Jekylls, and you're like, man, we are going and assassinating all these presidents. I can't live my life the way I did before.
I'm also afraid of, what's the movie, Inception, where it's like, in real life it's 10 minutes, but in my mind it's forever, and I cannot escape this hell that this drug has brought me to. So I don't know if I'm ever going to do DMT. That's probably far too hardcore for me.
Well, I have to say this margarita is hitting me now. Some people have been calling me out saying this isn't going to drink itself, but this is my second one. First one was like 2 hours ago, so it's not really. This is the one that's affecting me, but I did a little extra pour of Grandpa's syrup in there.
It's Grandpa's medicine, not Grandpa's syrup. Sam Smith says, have you seen part 1 of Plandemicmovie.com interview?
I think he asked this last night or so.
Somebody says $30 to see Lee on DMT. Hell no. No, I'm trying to think. Here, I can just go to Plandemic.com.
The next day you're on the live stream wearing dreads.
Plandemic.com. Is that what it was? Or was it Plandemicmovie.com?
Plan or pan? Oh, it is got a P in it. Plandemicmovie.com. I've been watching Waco, and I mentioned a couple weeks ago there was the anniversary of the Waco. Like the Waco event and the Oklahoma City bombing happened on the same calendar day.
Okay.
But Waco is freaking crazy, man. Like just to watch it from, I think this show was filmed 2 years ago and nobody really cared about it. But then it got on Netflix, and now under quarantine, it's like Tiger King, where everyone's been watching Waco. And it's told from the story of one of the guys. You wouldn't know this unless you read the behind the scenes, but it's written by one of these kids that he's like a drummer that gets recruited into the compound. But it's insane. And the more I read about it, I'm like, whoa.
Remind me what happens with Waco?
It's the Branch Davidians, and I thought that was named after David Koresh, who's the leader, but apparently the Branch Davidians existed years before David Koresh was the leader.
Okay.
He actually got in this crazy argument with the previous leader of the group, which is like a whole other thing. There's some crazy stories there.
But what happens at the end?
Basically, it's an ATF sort of thing. The Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms comes after them and says, we want to search your property for illegal guns that you may have. So a lot of Second Amendment people say that's proof the government will come after you if you have guns that might even be legal.
Yep.
And so they just have all of these guns in this big compound, and he's like acting like Jesus Christ, and he's discipling all these people. So, but there's polygamy involved. There's all these other things involved.
Always.
But basically the ATF, and I don't know if they've actually proven this, but I think by all accounts, most people believe our government fired on them first. And then they have this 51-day standoff. And it was in the news day and day. And I mean, I remember this as a kid. I think I was in 7th grade.
I remember something
and then
like
eventually they're like, enough is enough. We're going to go in there and get them. And like hopefully remove the children and stuff. And like the whole place catches on fire. And there's a debate whether or not they committed suicide by setting it on fire, or if the ATF, FBI set the place on fire, maybe to drive them out. But I don't know how many people died, but it's like 50 people and a bunch of children, maybe like 20 kids, all burned in this horrible thing. It's like one of the worst, I don't say it's active terrorism, it's like one of the worst homegrown domestic situations where people died. Like it's a really, really bad situation. But it's on Netflix. It's pretty entertaining. Like
they didn't have anything to do with a comet, right? They didn't believe like some comet.
No, that was the Halley's Comet. Who was that?
I don't know.
That was where they all dressed like ninjas and then drank the Gatorade and died or something.
What? I thought that was Jonestown. There's another Gatorade Kool-Aid one?
It's a common theme.
Oh my gosh. Here, let's watch just a quick clip. I have no idea what we're about to watch here. This is Plandemic.
25 minutes.
We're not going to watch the whole thing, just for a second here. Let's see what they say.
Dr. Judy Mikovits has been called one of the most accomplished scientists of her generation. Her 1991 doctoral thesis revolutionized the treatment of HIV/AIDS. At the height of her career, Dr. Mikovits published a blockbuster article in the journal Science. The controversial article sent shockwaves through the scientific community as it revealed that the common use of animal and human.
Well, that's true. That's absolutely true.
This does not look very high end to me.
Well, just the fact that they got them walking, and then they have, but like the voiceover acting is not great. But let's look at that. They got some slider moves, some
personal life. Now,
it's better than most conspiracy theory videos that I've been watching recently. Okay,
was behind the plague of corruption that places all human life in danger. So you made.
That looks pretty good, right? I mean, it still looks conspiracy theory-esque, but let's listen in.
They did everything in their powers to destroy your life.
Correct.
You were arrested.
Correct.
And then you were put under a gag order.
For 5 years, if I went on social media, if I said anything at all, they would find new evidence and put me back in jail. And it was one of the few times I cried, and it was because I knew there was no evidence the first time. And when you can unleash that kind of force to force someone into bankruptcy with a perfect credit score.
All right, it has piqued my interest.
Yeah, we're already a minute in, and I have no idea what they're talking about. What is the idea behind this?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think it's that this was all a plan, and COVID-19 isn't real or it's man-made or something. Coming summer 2020. So.
Well, I will say that the book that I keep referencing, I think I mentioned this on yesterday's show. He's talking about how the banks are horrible. They're highly influential as well, and if they want to keep the American public in bankruptcy. Not in bankruptcy, but in debt. Once you have people in debt and they have no money to actually do the things that they want to do, they become slaves to the system. We talk about it all the time with photography. People go and get these ridiculously expensive photography degrees, and they think they're going to become photographers. But what they find out is I'm so in debt, and then starting a business right out of school is very, very difficult. You need a year or two at best to kind of get the ball rolling. So what happens? Most people just quit photography and say, I'll get to that eventually. But first, I got to pay this debt off, so I'm going to work for anything other than photography. Starbucks. And now they have a job where they have a manager, and the manager makes them work all Saturdays so they can assist and do the weddings. And it becomes this perpetual system where you're indebted to your college and to the banks now for this degree that we would argue in many cases, 90% of the time, it's not a legit degree. You're graduating with a degree in photography, yet you could have just assisted a photographer for 3 years and been way more knowledgeable if you went that route, you know?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what this documentary is about, the idea that maybe this whole thing is being played out to where the banks are going to, and the government is going to make people so in debt that the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer, and it creates this divide in our society. The most free societies, I would think, are the ones that have the largest middle class. And we've known for decades now, it seems like the middle class is getting smaller and smaller. And there's a large percentage of people that are getting richer, which is exciting to think that like you could be in America and be in the 2% or whatever. But then the poor people, the people that are on the brink of being bankrupt, paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, that's getting bigger too. This idea of the people making, I don't even know what that number would be. Would it be like $50,000 to $150,000 a year is like the middle class?
Maybe.
I don't know, I'm just making up those numbers. Maybe 50 grand still not enough if you have a family. But that is shrinking, and you're starting to get into this really polarized society, which isn't what the American dream has really been in the past.
Jeff Diffner says, you only need 1,000 subs to go live from your phone. You can already go live from your computer. Interesting. I'll have to look more into that. There was definitely some things that did not exist on the new channel that exist on the YouTube channel, the F-Stoppers YouTube channel that we've had for the last, who knows how many years. So basically, I just want to have all of the same features because if we try to go live and something doesn't work, we've already spent so much time trying to get all this stuff to work. Which, by the way, I'm excited. The new Ada Mini shows up. Ada Mini Pro shows up tomorrow. So at the moment, we can get rid of OBS and just stream directly from this board, which is exciting. But of course, if we want to get to the point where we have a show with animations and stuff, we will need a program like OBS or vMix to do that. But being that we don't have a production manager and I'm queuing things up myself, that seems a little bit too complicated for me at the moment.
I majored in photography in the mid-90s. Worthless degree.
Yeah,
I've met it, to be
much.
fair, like I know we bash on a lot of photo education degrees and stuff, but we've met some photographers that have degrees. Like Monty Isom's one who has been in that world, and Julia Kuzmenko-Kim. Like we know some incredible photographers that have real degrees, and Greg Heisler. Greg Heisler teaches at some of these universities. I mean, if you had a class with Greg Heisler, like you would be badass once you graduated there.
That'd be good.
So I don't know what percentage it is. I said 90% is garbage. Maybe it's 99% are garbage, but there are some good schools out there. But
sure,
to still think that you're going to pay 50 grand in America for that kind of education, at, on the bottom end probably, or you could get paid 50 grand over the course of several years. I mean, people like Monty, he assisted 20, maybe it's 100 amazing photographers before he jumped out and went pro himself.
Right.
Imagine what kind of situations he was in, both from a lighting standpoint and from a crazy business standpoint.
And just think about if his photography degree was so valuable, why didn't he just go out and become a professional photographer?
Yeah, he
He
knew.
needed to work with the best of the best in New York to learn how to talk to clients, to learn how to light, to learn how to photograph a celebrity and not screw it up. And so, there's something about working in the real world that you can't fully replicate in school.
I learned wedding photography from F-Stoppers. His username is photography, like faux.
Photog Mike says, Bleeding Heart liberal Bill Clinton and Janet Reno is the reason for the scourge on our history known as Waco. So now my interest is peaked on this Waco thing. I need to watch.
Well,
this.
Waco is the reason that Oklahoma City, the bombing happened. It's one of a few reasons, but
really,
yeah, because they start off with this Ruby Ridge thing, and I don't know all the details in there, but basically it's another right-wing, crazy Aryan race type of guy.
I watched a documentary on that a year or two ago, so I know.
So maybe you know
a
little bit more about that. Like he had crazy beliefs that I don't agree with, but on some level he was locked up in this house in the middle of like Utah or Idaho, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and then the ATF comes in there and basically snipes his wife. You know, it's just like a bad situation, you know?
Yeah.
And then a very similar situation happens in Waco. And again, I'm not sticking up for these people because I think there was, I mean, you start seeing like polygamy and you start seeing like underage, you know, kids are having babies at 15 years old. It's sick, disturbing stuff. But the way our government handled it is also pretty disturbing. And I can see why some people are up in arms saying like, I don't trust the government. And I'm going to have guns for my own protection, but more than that, the protection of the government if they ever come for me, you know? Now, I would argue it never ends well when the government comes for you.
Right.
But Waco is a clear example of that.
All right, I'm watching Waco. How many episodes are in that show?
I think it's 5 or 6.
All right, I can do that.
And it's got the, who's the actor from, you saw Chef? I really like that movie.
Yeah.
It's got like the Mexican guy who's like, I'm on board. I'm quitting my job too, and I'm going.
I think so. I think I remember. I don't know his name.
He's a good actor. I don't know his name, but he's been in a lot of shows and movies that I've really liked. I appreciate him, so he's in there.
Did you see the video that these YouTubers convinced Carol fucking Baskins to do a fake interview with them because they pretended to be the Jimmy Fallon show?
No.
And they basically got her on Zoom, and they downloaded all these audio clips, and they made a soundboard of Jimmy Kimmel asking questions, generic questions. And they were like, now because of COVID, you know, you're not going to be able to see him, but he can see you, and you just have to listen.
It's brilliant.
And it was a really well done YouTube video, especially for how...
Did they get her to say crazy stuff, or they just tried to make it...
No, it's just and here's the other thing.
They used him to get access that they
it was the
normally...
first interview she's done since the show. She's refused to do all interviews.
Well, now she's never done an interview.
Part of her stipulation was that she would not discuss Tiger King. And they were like, sure. So the interview is actually incredibly boring. It's just, she just wants to talk about like...
what she's up to. And like,
like I had to let go of some people, but the cats are still being cared for. It's a horrible interview. But the way...
At the end.
What?
At the end, do they get her?
No, I don't think
they don't ask her like, what do you think of Nick Cage playing?
I don't think so. I think they just end on this respectful note, and she gets to plug some charity she wants to do.
This seems like a really boring video, but it caught your attention.
Well, it's just gone viral because they tricked Carol Baskins. But then the entertaining part is just the amount of work they put in to do it, and the burner phones, and how they tricked her, and how they made the thing. So they took something that's relatively boring, and I thought they did a really good edit on that video.
B. Stewart is saying you got to watch Waco, The Rules of Engagement from 1997. Documentary. It's nuts. The real story. It won lots of awards. Somehow last night, like I don't know if you do this, but like I get in the shower and I still watch stuff on my phone.
Every day.
Like I put my back to the shower head and I just like watch stuff. It's like
I've got a little ledge, so I just put it up there and I'm showering while...
You know when you're like taking a dump, it's like man time. You get to do whatever you want. The shower also becomes that sometimes.
Sure.
So last night, somehow, I watched an episode of Waco, and then I found myself watching a audio recording of David Koresh playing a song, and it's called like Madman in Waco. And it's not about himself. It's actually about the previous leader of the Branch Davidians that he has to go to court with. And apparently he goes to court and he takes a coffin into the courtroom with like a body to prove that he killed this person that was dug up. It's crazy.
Okay.
But in the comments, somebody mentions this Rules of Engagement. There was another documentary that's already slipped my mind. But it's funny somebody recognizes this because people in this YouTube comments were saying, Rules of Engagement is the Waco story you really need to watch. Because the Waco you will know, most of us know, is the Waco that starts in 1993. But the Branch Davidians started in like 1987 or something. So like, there's a lot of years before the ATF gets involved. So,
man, every time I watch these good cult movies, I just think like they were so close. Is there any part of this where you're like, man, that looked pretty awesome there for a little while before it starts going crazy?
I mean, none of the men can have sex, and only David gets to have sex with all their women. And I'm like,
always that. Why can't you just start a nice cult where everyone can have sex with their own partners? Why does the leader always have to have sex with everybody?
because he's Jesus, and he's like, you know, he's the Messiah. He's a Messiah.
Okay.
Gotta make that clear. And he's like, look, sex isn't for pleasure. I mean, there's a scene where he's like having sex, and he's like, I have to stop because it's becoming too much about the flesh. And you're like, is that really how he acted? You know, it's like,
wait. So,
but he still impregnate you. So he's gotten to that point.
yeah,
you know,
of course. He was just not into it at that moment, so he's like, oh, I'm going to act like I'm super holy right now.
Yeah. I don't know, but when I see him preaching, I see all those Marshalls, and there's like 50 guitars. I'm like, well, I mean, I could jam out all day, you know, it wouldn't be that bad.
You watched Wild Wild Country, right?
I didn't.
What?
I was in the plane with you on some trip, and I constantly would look over your shoulder seeing you watch it. But
I feel like Wild Wild Country is probably top 5 documentaries I've ever seen. Yeah, it's that
and that's on Netflix.
Freaking good. And Wild Wild Country was interesting because they interviewed people who were in this cult just a few years ago. I mean, it's just wild to see these people, like people were trying to murder other people and stuff, and they're in the documentary doing interviews and they're admitting to it.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this. But the leader of this cult, I don't remember what it was called, he actually seemed like a pretty legit dude. Like, I don't think he was having sex with anyone. He wasn't, like, nobody at all. Like, he didn't even really have a partner.
Yeah.
He started to fall into a weird trap of wanting possessions and stuff. Like, he was obsessed with, like, Rolexes and Rolls Royces and stuff. So he'd have, like, 5 Rolls Royces that people would drive him around in, which was really weird.
Well, this was like Bikram Yoga guy. He's got all the crazy cars and stuff.
But it seemed like the rest of his life was very much dedicated to just being this shaman and this holy guy. Like, he didn't really seem like a bad guy. Now, some bad things end up happening. I won't give it away for anybody who's not seen this, but you should definitely watch this documentary series. It is so good, and it had me thinking the whole time. I'm like, they had a utopia. They built a utopia. It was amazing, and then it just slowly starts to fall apart, and of course it explodes at the end. But for a while there, I'm like, they had it figured out.
Well, I remember you telling me some stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is insane. It happened in like Oregon or Seattle, Washington?
Maybe Colorado. I don't remember. I can't remember.
But you were like, dude, listen to this, and you would tell me some plot line, and I'm like, what?
I know. Insane. I mean, imagine somebody trying to murder somebody in like the craziest way you can imagine, and then they are interviewing that person in the show, and they're like, yeah, you know, I thought it was what I needed to do for the betterment of the group, so I went in and I tried to kill the person like this, and you're like, you're admitting this on camera right now. What?
Do you ever wonder if you could join or be a member of a cult just for fun and not get wrapped up in?
Yes, actually.
Who is the guy that's always
a crazy rabbit hole right now?
Well, somebody here says I accidentally started a cult once. It's faux photographer who we apparently trained to be a wedding photographer. He accidentally started a cult once. But who's the guy that's always on like Joe Rogan's podcast? He's like super California, like surfer dude.
Is he a comedian?
Yeah. He has his own podcast.
Oh, he's got the mullet.
Yeah, but he was like, man, I was in a cult once. A lot of drugs.
Yeah, that guy, he's up for anything. He's always getting, what's his...
But I'm watching things like Waco, and I'm like, could I have gone and hung out for like a month and just not have joined?
Yeah.
Or would you get sucked in? Like, I mean, these people are super manipulative, and they play on all your fears and your anxieties, and they give you all your desires to some degree.
Yeah.
They take away the sex, but you know, if
not in Wild Wild Country, you get more sex in Wild Wild. Yes.
But there was another guy that was like, what was the big polygamy guy recently? Like 5 years ago, there was this guy, Texas or somewhere in the West, and he had like a full-blown like
I don't know.
chapel.
I think there's some guy on like the Learning Channel or something. It was like Big Love or something. This dude's got multiple wives. I don't know how this is legal. Maybe legally he's not married, but yeah, I think he's Mormon and he's got 5 wives. Theo Von, yeah. But what were we talking? Oh yeah, speaking of like going into a cult, yeah, I've always been fascinated by that. I also have wanted to go to a Church of Scientology. What is their like?
The Church of Scientology.
Do they have like a service, a ceremony? What do they do? I don't know what goes on in there.
I haven't watched a lot of those documentaries. I've seen like episodes and like some of what was the girl, famous actress, and she does a.
Yeah, I've seen all that. I've seen all that. Like,
so I don't know how easy it is to join, but like they do crazy stuff.
I think it's pretty easy to join. They're paying money to get you to join, and then they want you to pay to do all the cans and buy the books.
But they actually have power. If you come out against them, like she had death threats and all this crazy stuff happens. HBO, like all the documentaries that come out, but with the Branch Davidians, I'm pretty sure you could leave David Koresh, and nobody's going to come out across the country and search for you.
See, I don't know. I would think that with Scientology, if I just went to a few services or whatever and gave them fake info, they're not coming after me. They don't care who I am. But if I'm in a cult with 50 people and they know who I am, and then I leave and I'm talking trash on YouTube Live,
I don't think they care. But I bet you the Church of Scientology would.
I don't know. I mean, the Church of Scientology, they have a lot more trouble now. A few years ago, they were able to scare everyone into shutting up.
Yeah.
Now, like, nobody's afraid of them anymore, and people are doing these shows.
It's crazy. You go downtown LA and you see that, like, that building. It's like there, and you're like, oh man, like that's it, you know.
Photo Mike says Hugh Hefner became a multi-millionaire staying at home in his pajamas. So far, I'm not having the same luck. Us either. We're doing all these live streams. We're losing all of our YouTube subscribers at a
do you see how many viewers we have right now?
How many? 666?
We have 666 viewers at this very moment. Conspiracy confirmed.
If you're new to this live stream, please go to the link in the description and subscribe to our new YouTube channel. We need to hit 1,000 subscribers before it unlocks a bunch of features and stuff. And we're going to be moving all live streams over to that. So if you're a photographer and you hate the fact that we're making these videos on our YouTube F-Stoppers channel, by you subscribing, that's only helping us move away from this channel more quickly.
Yeah. Modern day Scientology is under 8,000 members worldwide, so we have nothing to fear. And the guy I was trying to think of right above that is Warren Jeffs. Warren Jeffs was like this super old dude, like.
There is no way that Scientology has under 8,000 members.
You don't think?
No way.
You think it's bigger than that?
I bet you there's more Scientologists in like Miami, Florida than 8,000 members.
Sounds like you're in the know.
Google it.
Sounds like you've been approached and I want to know more about like Warren Jeffs, because I haven't heard from him in years, but that was the big one where it was like the next Waco. Is the government going to go in there? And they were trying to. I think he got arrested for pedophilia and multiple wives and polygamy and all that stuff. But it took a while. Gosh, it's like right on the brink of my knowledge. I'd like to know more about that. That needs to be the next Netflix series. Do the Warren Jeffs story.
Who's Warren Jeff?
He's this old dude who was in New Mexico or Texas or something, who had, it's the same thing. He's like the cult leader who's got all the wives. I mean, but he had a lot of people. You find out this story and I'll try to.
I'm getting very conflicting numbers here all over Google. I'm seeing 10 million Scientologists. I'm seeing 8 million to 15 million members. I'm seeing in 1993 there was 30,000 members. There's no possible way it's 8,000. That is not possible. Let's see.
Okay, so Warren Jeffs was the president of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which was a polygamous Mormon denomination. He was convicted of 2 felony accounts of child sexual assault for which he is currently serving life sentence plus 20 years. He was caught in 2006. Okay, so this was a lot longer. Man, time flies. I remember hearing about this guy and thinking, man, this is such crazy stuff. But you remember that guy's picture? You never saw that dude? It's always the nerdiest looking guys who get everyone to follow.
Well, you know, I am fascinated by people who call themselves, you know, Jesus Christ or the Messiah or whatever. And there's this guy, I assume he's still in Australia maybe, but you can look this dude up on YouTube and there's videos with people going in and questioning him. And he's like, he tells girls that they are reincarnations of Mary Magdalene.
Okay.
But this interviewer's like, didn't you tell your last girlfriend that she was the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene? And he was like, yeah, but I was confused back then. This is the one for real. So I just find it fascinating. And then, you know, to watch these people cry, you know, they'll ask, do you think he's the Son of God? And people just break down in tears and be like, I've never been more sure of this in my life. Just goes to show you.
That's how the Bikram yoga guy was. People were like, I was about to commit suicide because I was overweight. And he like changed my life and I owe everything to him. And I think the allegations are true, but it's so hard for me to, on one hand, like he's the reason I'm still alive. I'd be dead. I was going to take my life. But on the other hand, he's done these horrible things that I totally believe he did. And I morally can't make sense of all of that. Like it's really...
So look, you could look at this two ways. You could look at it from a very pessimistic standpoint. You could say, man, look at how gullible we are as humans and we're all capable of falling for things based on emotion or whatever and things that we want to believe so badly and we can actually make ourselves believe. Or on the positive side, you could go, look how easy it is to affect someone in such a powerful and strong way in this world. People are looking for leaders in all aspects of their lives. And you could be that leader to someone in your life, even if it's just your own child or something, and completely change their life, the way they act, their outlook on life. Or you could use it to have sex with
that's
lots
like the
of women at the
Tony
same
Robbins
time.
thing. Did Tony Robbins have a Me Too movement sort of thing?
He got caught?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
I don't think so. I haven't heard
He
that.
seems like one of those guys, when you watch his like documentaries and stuff,
Yep.
it's unbelievable power of suggestion and inspiration, and the stuff he gets people to do is very, like, it's unbelievable. But there's always this element of like, there's something not right with that, you know? Like, it feels like there's something else going on.
Well, it's very much, I mean, if
Does he struggle with like demons and like struggle with like deep issues himself, but like somehow through that he's able to inspire all these people? Like, it just seems like there's something going on that doesn't...
Maybe so. I mean, when you watch his events, they're very much like a church service.
Yeah.
Very much. Getting people to stand up and like talk about their deepest, darkest fears and what they're struggling with. And then he's going to get the person next to you to give you a hug and tell you how you can fix it. And then we're going to get in a group and we're all going to put our arms around each other and tell each other we love each other. And then we're going to put our hands up and dance together. And like, it's very similar. Except it costs thousands of dollars to do that rather than a free service. Man, we are still at 666.
That's kind of
concurrent
creepy.
Viewers. Super creepy.
The Jeff Warrens thing, I'm trying to find out how many members he had, but when the Texas authorities conducted a raid, they took legal custody of 416 children. It's a pretty big group of people.
Interesting. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, or should we call it?
I'm at the end of my drink. Our speaker's starting to pop again, although it's been quiet for a while.
I thought it stopped.
Yeah, it did stop for a while, and I got a little buzz, and it's 10 o'clock.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. As I've said multiple times throughout this broadcast, we are going to try to eventually move all live broadcasts over to another YouTube channel, just so we don't piss off everybody who doesn't want to have this show up in their newsfeed. So even if you don't really want to watch these live videos, if you could just subscribe just for a day or two so that I can unlock some of these features, and then you can unsubscribe if you want to. But I'm thinking that maybe we'll do a lot of, I mean, at the moment, I'm loving doing stuff daily. It's very easy to do.
We'll have that new Mini Pro.
Yeah.
So we can test that out. Tomorrow, I think, is the deadline for the newest Critique the Community. People have been asking, when are you doing the Critique the Community?
Okay.
Sometimes we break our own deadlines and we just like say, let's film a Critique the Community today, even though it ends tomorrow. Tomorrow it ends.
Okay.
And so you can go to fstoppers.com/contest if you want to submit your best image of technology. You and I have been toying with the idea of doing that live. Is there any chance that that's going to happen in the technology one? Or are we going to have to play around with all this?
Oh, I want to do that. I want to do the next one live for sure. Like the next critique is about technology. So we have to do it. It's probably going to be a failure, but that'll be the fun. And yeah, it'll probably be still on this channel. But like I said, if you do us a big favor,
well,
and
that's an
subscribe
interesting
over there,
idea. Is
that'd be
like,
good.
would Critique the Communities and other live photography content be on this channel or be on the live channel?
So I think it's going to be pushed to the live channel, and then we just grab the most interesting clips and stuff and put that back on this channel. And that way, because, you know, a lot of times you go to our channel and it's just a lot of Critique the Communities and stuff. And I know the people who like Critique the Communities really like the Critique the Communities, but it's not that exciting. The content's always long. They're over an hour.
It's funny because I think we just started it just to like have some way to interact with the people on the F-Stoppers community.
Yeah.
Never thinking it would be, I mean, we've done hundreds of those episodes now.
It's crazy.
And yet people love it.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's like the most common content that we put up.
I know, but it's not the
consistent.
best content. It's just kind of boring. So I'm hoping if we do it live, it'll be more exciting. People will be able to do super chats with links to their pictures, and then we can critique images on the fly. I think it'll be a little bit more fun. And of course, our hardware here will crash and it'll go black and we'll be cursing, and that's gonna make it more exciting. All right, guys,
get out of here.
that wraps
See
up
y'all
this
tomorrow.
episode. We will see you tomorrow.